Xing Hongshan saw him and asked curiously, "What is it?" Hanju rarely took the initiative to look for her. Could it be for his son? Xing Hongshan reached out to touch her abdomen with anticipation. At first, she was also worried. After all, she had been pregnant for so long. However, as years passed, she could feel the child's vitality. She was now filled with anticipation. Such an extraordinary fetus must be extraordinary. Hanju said, "If you encounter trouble, send me a voice transmission at any time. Don't be afraid of disturbing my cultivation." Xing Hongshan smiled. "It's fine. I'm a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, after all. How can it be difficult?" Hanju chatted with her for a while and left after the absolute purification ended. Hanju sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus and started to check his emails. The protagonist of his emails became Pan Xin. This fellow had always been fighting and had never been severely injured. He was extremely domineering. Hanju also saw that Divine Lord Peacock was severely injured. How tragic. Han Tuo followed the evil Heavenly Emperor and was beaten from time to time. After reading the emails, Hanju looked at the immortal world. The addition of the Calamity race promoted the development of all living beings in the immortal world. The cultivation trend became stronger, which in turn strengthened the Heavenly Tao's providence. It was worth mentioning the humans. Even if sages were preaching the Tao, their potential was innate, like a natural chasm suppressing all living beings. Hanju saw Hanyu. As the human race became stronger, Hanyu obtained its providence, and his cultivation level increased by leaps and bounds. Hanju looked at the netherworld next. Su Qi had been in seclusion recently, and young Tiandong was also living very peacefully. On the other side, after the Earth Immortal world fused with the providence of the Heavenly Tao, Hanju could spy on the situation of the Earth Immortal world in the main Tao field. Rengang and Yin Hongchen's cultivation levels had improved greatly, which satisfied him. Several hours later, Hanju retracted his gaze and continued cultivating. 3,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The first thing Hanju did when he opened his eyes was to look at Xing Hongshan. It was not born yet. Hanju frowned. He spied on the fetus in Xing Hongshuan's womb. Its aura had already surpassed that of a mortal. Its soul had taken form, but it was in a sleeping state. This kid, was he going to hide in his mother's womb forever? The fetus only instinctively absorbed Xing Hongshuan's dermic powers. It did not have a cultivation technique and did not have a realm for the time being. Xing Hongshuan's cultivation did not stop because of him. Her body was also in good condition. Her cultivation speed was even faster than before she got pregnant. After observing this, Hanju was relieved. He was afraid that the fetus would burden Xing Hongshan. Now, it seemed that she was cultivating faster than before thanks to it. The news of Xing Hongshuan's pregnancy had already spread throughout the 100-peak Immortal River. The disciples were all looking forward to this young sect master. Only a few people knew that Han Tuo was Hanju's son. Most disciples thought that he only had one son. It's said that the young master is still being nurtured. He must be impressive. That's right. The longer it incubates, the stronger the potential. It's said that the ancestral dragon was nurtured for 10 billion years. 10 billion years is too exaggerated. In any case, Sect Master's son is definitely a genius. Let's guess how long he will take to descend. It's probably still early. Hanju heard many disciples talking about this in the 100-peak Immortal River. Most of them were looking forward to it. If Hanju had children, the hidden sect could continue to be passed down generation after generation. As for personal disciples, they were not as powerful as the protectors who joined later. They were not enough to convince the masses. If his cultivation and experience were not enough to take over Hanju's position, he could only use his bloodline to convince the masses. Hanju looked forward to this child's performance after he was born. What should I name it? Hanju touched his chin and pondered. He hoped that this kid was not reckless and liked to cultivate diligently like him. Just call him Han Bulang? Han Kuxio? Han Go? Psst, this name was like cursing. He would think about it later. Hanju quickly closed his eyes. He was also agitated by his youngest son. He wanted to break through a minor realm before this child was born. Dark Forbidden Zone. In the darkness stood a huge stone door that sat above the sea of clouds. Two figures sat under the door. They were Han Tuo and Yi Tian. Han Tuo suddenly opened his eyes and frowned. Yi Tian asked, "What's wrong? Why are you feeling uneasy recently? Are you afraid of Divine Lord Peacock's revenge?" Han Tuo shook his head. Of course not. Divine Lord Peacock has already been suppressed. Even if he escaped, revenge is still revenge on His Majesty. However, for some reason, I've been feeling inexplicably frustrated recently. Yi Tian opened his eyes and asked, "Should we ask His Majesty?" Han Tuo thought for a moment. This mentality indeed affected his cultivation. He immediately stood up. The stone door emitted a strong light. It was a teleportation formation that was 10,000 feet tall. Han Tuo stepped into the strong light and arrived in a paradise. The blue sky was filled with white clouds. Immortal birds flew past in rows. There were palaces above every sea of clouds. From time to time, heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals would patrol. Han Tuo quickly arrived at a majestic palace at the highest point. A plaque was hanging on the door. Numinous Palace. Han Tuo had the Heavenly Emperor token and could directly enter the hall. The evil Heavenly Emperor was sitting on the Emperor's throne with two pieces of jade in his hand, frowning. "Your Majesty, I have something to ask you." Han Tuo cupped his fists and bowed. The evil Heavenly Emperor looked up and smiled kindly. "What is it?" He was very satisfied with Han Tuo. He felt that he had potential that was not inferior to Hanju, making up for the regret of not controlling Hanju back then. Han Tuo voiced his concerns. The evil Heavenly Emperor frowned. Han Tuo was also a mighty figure. His control over his body and soul had long reached the perfection realm. How could he be flustered for no reason? He pinched his fingers to deduce, but he could not deduce it. He had to take out a golden mirror. "Stand closer," the evil Heavenly Emperor said softly. Han Tuo immediately took a step forward. The evil Heavenly Emperor held the golden mirror and looked at him. Golden light scattered out and landed on Han Tuo. Crack! The mirror suddenly shattered, and a long crack appeared, splitting the mirror into two. The evil Heavenly Emperor widened his eyes and exclaimed, "How is this possible?" Han Tuo's heart skipped a beat when he saw the mirror shatter. Crap! This was His Majesty's treasure. This is a chaotic numinous treasure. It can even deduce chaotic fiend celestials. What karma caused this mirror to shatter? The evil Heavenly Emperor felt inexplicably uneasy. Could it be that a terrifying existence that surpassed chaotic fiend celestials had targeted Han Tuo? An ancient god who stands at the end of the river of destiny. He's a transcendent existence that has existed since the beginning of time. When we get there, without my instructions, you are not allowed to speak or look at him. Yes. The evil Heavenly Emperor waved his hand and left with Han Tuo. In the imperial city of the human race, Han Yu sat under a tree in his courtyard. There were dozens of cultivation formations set up in this courtyard, and the Khanate Chi was extremely abundant. He suddenly opened his eyes, his handsome face revealing worry. "What's happening?" Han Yu muttered to himself. If this continued, Han Yu was worried that he would go berserk. He hesitated for a long time before leaving. Several days later, he arrived at the top of the Buzhou Divine Mountain. There was a simple Taoist temple here. It was Li Daogong's cultivation place in the past. He pushed open the door and bowed to the mat that Li Daogong had once sat on. "Master, I have something to ask you," Han Yu said softly and respectfully. After a while, Li Daogong's voice sounded, "What is it?" Han Yu told him about his troubles. Li Daogong said, "Don't worry. Nothing will happen to you in the heavenly Tao." Han Yu hesitated before saying, "But this mentality has already affected my cultivation. Bear with it. It might be related to your ancestor. I can't figure out why, but there's one thing I can be sure of. Don't leave the heavenly Tao for the time being, understand?" "I understand." He had heard of such a thing before. As the saying went, if one lived, all would live. If one died, all would die. "I see." CHCK for EWSD Rise on No VL Bin. Silencio Han Yu was indeed being affected by his bloodline. Li Daogong was not a gossipy person. He did not ask further. After understanding the reason, he was relieved and no longer worried about Han Yu. On the other side, Han Tuo followed the evil heavenly emperor into chaotic space. The fog was vast, and colorful lights flashed from time to time. Just the lower half of his body was millions of feet tall. It was extremely huge and had an extremely visual impact. There was actually a cold eye in that huge navel. Meeting its gaze, Han Tuo's soul almost exploded, scaring him so much that he hurriedly lowered his head. The evil heavenly emperor bowed and said, "Greetings, divine ancestor. Why are you here?" An ancient voice sounded. It spoke extremely slowly. Just these words made Han Tuo feel as if he had lived through the 4 seasons. This feeling was extremely strange. Han Tuo was shocked to discover that his dermic powers had increased greatly. His cultivation level increased just by listening to the other party. Han Tuo became even more nervous. The other party's existence exceeded his imagination and understanding. He suddenly forgot what the legs and belly button looked like. He did not dare to look up. "Divine ancestor, what caused the divine mirror you gave me to shatter?" the evil heavenly emperor asked respectfully. The ancient voice sounded, "This karma is too great. It's not something it can withstand. It's related to this child's bloodline. A supreme expert will appear in his bloodline karma and overturn the chaos. Thank you for your guidance, ancestor." The evil heavenly emperor bowed. Since it was related to Hanju, he couldn't be bothered. He turned around and prepared to leave with Han Tuo. The evil heavenly emperor's voice entered Han Tuo's ears, scaring him so much that he followed closely behind and quickly flew away. Unknowingly, Han Tuo heard a strange song. It sometimes sounded like a resentful girl and sometimes sounded like a heroic shout, causing his consciousness to blur. When he woke up, he was shocked to discover that he had already returned to the numinous palace. Han Tuo's consciousness quickly cleared. He looked at the evil heavenly emperor and asked, "Your Majesty, just now?" The evil heavenly emperor said expressionlessly, "What just now? 100 years have passed. You were almost mesmerized by that old man's Tao." Even more afraid now, Han Tuo asked curiously, "Is he stronger than the Tao ancestor?" The evil heavenly emperor replied, "I'm not sure. That existence is not something I can assess. Don't think about it usually. Whatever you can think of, he can learn of it." Not long after the lecture ended, Li Xianao and Han Zuetian came to visit. As the first living being to transform in the 100-peak immortal river, Han Zuetian was already Li Xianao's right-hand man. They managed the affairs of the 100-peak immortal river together. Hanju let them in and the two of them knelt down. Han Zuetian began to report the situation in the sect. However, so far, other than Tao Sovereign, no new pseudo-sage had been born. The next pseudo-sage was most likely Zhao Shenyuan. The reason why Li Xian'eo dared to speak was that he could see the current situation of the heavenly Tao. Previously, when the Calamity race attacked, Hanju had also sent Tao Sovereign out to fight, which meant that he still cared about the heavenly Tao. He did not let go in the past because he was afraid of causing trouble. He wasn't afraid now. Even if the sky collapsed, he could withstand it. Of course, if the disciples caused trouble, Hanju would also punish them severely. In any case, he had people in the netherworld. Those who had done evil should be severely punished. His principles and bottom line could not be broken. If they killed the innocent today, they might want to kill their master tomorrow. All right, I'll arrange it now, Li Xian'eo said excitedly. Han Zuetian asked, Grand Master, is there a limit to the number of recruits? It was really the primordial fiend celestial. None of them were worthless. Hanju had no choice but to use the derivation function. I think I know why my youngest son can perfectly inherit my bloodline. If it was any other father, they would be overjoyed, but Hanju was instinctively vigilant. What if it was a trap? The first thing he thought of was the Tao ancestor. The Tao ancestor had started plotting against him after he had interfered with his Tao integration plan? Hanju asked, is my youngest son being controlled by others? Or is he the reincarnation of another mighty figure? 100 million years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. As expected of my son. He's already worth 100 million before he's even born. This soul is a new existence. It only involves the transcendent rule and is not being controlled by any living being. It was fine as long as he was not a spy. In that case, the reason why Hanju won consecutively was that he had touched a certain transcendent rule. What was it? Hanju was puzzled. Since he couldn't figure it out, forget it. Hanju started to check his emails. Your good friend Jiang Dugu has entered the dark forbidden zone. Your good friend Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Pen Xin was attacked by your enemy, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning. Your good friend Ancestor Shitian was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. Your good friend Divine Lord Peacock was attacked by an inauspicious evil, X2093833297. Your son Hantuo received guidance from a mysterious mighty figure in his dreams. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Heavenly Calamity Emperor was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your son Hantuo was attacked by a mysterious Tao Devil, X7113924. Hanju was surprised. After so long, Divine Lord Peacock still hadn't escaped from the inauspicious Divine Emperor? Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? It was not that the evil Heavenly Emperor wanted to recruit Divine Lord Peacock, but that the inauspicious Divine Emperor wanted to torture him? Hanju hesitated for a moment and decided to visit Divine Lord Peacock in his dreams. This fellow defeated the inauspicious Divine Emperor? Hanju thought to himself. It seemed that the situation was different from what he had imagined. Divine Lord Peacock continued to shout, What? Are you shocked? Are you exasperated and want to curse me? He had the karma bead that specialized in isolating curses, so he was naturally not afraid of curses. Hanju shook his head. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done so long ago. Besides, do you really think you escaped on your own? Divine Lord Peacock frowned. Could it be? Divine Lord Peacock carefully recalled the previous battle. There was indeed something wrong with the inauspicious Divine Emperor. He seemed very weak. Could it be that he had deliberately let him go? Divine Lord Peacock's expression instantly turned ashen. Compared to being defeated, he hated being humiliated even more. Divine Lord Peacock glared at him. What do you want? Hanju said, Come back. Find a place outside the heavenly Tao to enter seclusion. Wait for me to arrange for the disciples in the heavenly Tao to challenge you. Inside the heavenly Tao? Divine Lord Peacock laughed angrily. He had some understanding of the heavenly Tao. Even the strongest sage was not his match. How could he not understand what Hanju meant? He wanted to nurture that heavenly Tao disciple again and challenge him later. If that was the case, didn't that mean that Hanju thought that the heavenly Tao disciple's potential was stronger than his? Alright, I'll rush to the heavenly Tao now. I want to see what your heavenly Tao disciple is capable of. Divine Lord Peacock waved his sleeve and the dream shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and looked helpless. Why was this fellow so angry? How did he cultivate to this day with this temper? Fortunately, he was not born in the same era as him. Otherwise, he would definitely be slapped to death. Hanju still wanted to ask if the inauspicious Divine Emperor had really been killed by Divine Lord Peacock. He did not believe it. No matter how he looked at it, the inauspicious Divine Emperor was a great Tao existence. How could he be killed by a Freedom Realm cultivator? If this Peacock was really so capable, Hanju wouldn't subdue him. He had to think of a way to get rid of him. Hanju didn't allow another person with his potential to exist in the world, especially when they were enemies. Hanju teleported to the second Tao field. He gathered everyone in the second Tao field and began to preach. The chaotic fiend celestial's cultivation speed was extremely fast. They had all reached the late-stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. The heavenly constellation fiend celestial had even reached the perfected Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. It seemed that the original chaotic fiend celestial cultivated the fastest. Yangdu was the weakest. He had no choice. He had yet to transform into a chaotic fiend celestial. In the Milky Way, Yangdu was extremely domineering. The name of the war god resounded throughout the galaxy, but here, his attitude was humble. In front of the other chaotic fiend celestials, he did not seem to exist. It was not that the chaotic fiend celestials were bullying him, but the difference in cultivation level was too great. Just talking to them gave Yangdu a huge psychological pressure. He continued cultivating after returning to the 100-peak Immortal River. When he broke through to the late stage of the Freedom Primordial Chaos Realm, he would attack Divine Lord Peacock and let him understand that there was always someone better. 1,000 years later, Hanju opened his eyes. His cultivation level had increased again, and he was getting closer and closer to breaking through. He glanced over and discovered that Divine Lord Peacock had already returned to the Calamity Race's city outside the Heavenly Tao. Although this fellow was arrogant, he still kept his word. Hanju naturally guessed Guanbubi's thoughts, but he didn't agree immediately. Hanju was silent. In his previous life, Guanbubi was attacked when he was trying to break through to the great Dao Dao fruit. Such hatred was irreconcilable. If it was Hanju, he wouldn't be able to tolerate it either. Guanbubi's favorability was 5 stars. In the past, Hanju would have trusted him, but now, he felt that as long as it wasn't maxed, it was unreliable. Hanju hesitated. After a long while, "Forget it, I'll send you to a place. Continue cultivating and wait," Hanju said and brought Guanbubi to the second Dao field. Guanbubi was puzzled. "What place?" "Go out and listen to Murongqi. As for why I brought you here, you can ask him." Hanju left after saying this. He had once instructed Murongqi that anyone he sent here would be chaotic fiend celestial candidates and he could explain everything to them. Sensing the terrifying blood essence of Murongqi, the heavenly constellation fiend celestial, the crimson fox, and great loose heaven, Guanbubi was secretly shocked. He began to ask where this was. Murongqi and the others did not hide anything. When Guanbubi learned that Hanju could make him a chaotic fiend celestial, he was stunned. In his previous life, he was the connate life form with the most outstanding potential. He had almost attained the great Tao, but he knew the difference between him and the chaotic fiend celestial. Hanju could actually turn him into a chaotic fiend celestial. Impossible! Guanbubi's first reaction was disbelief. After he entered the simulation trial with Great Loose Heaven and the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial, he believed it and was shocked. A chaotic Fiend Celestial at the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm was enough to sweep through him. On the other side, a line of words appeared in front of Hanju. Guanbubi's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 6 stars. Hanju thought silently. Even if Guanbubi betrayed him later, he was not afraid. Before these chaotic fiend celestials appeared, he would definitely test their loyalty. Those below 6 stars would all be thrown into the primordial heavenly prison. Hanju didn't want to be stabbed in the back. Not long after, he threw himself into cultivation again. He wanted to break through as soon as possible. In a courtyard, Longhao and Hanyu sat at the table and drank happily. Recently, Hanyu's uneasiness had disappeared and he had returned to his normal state. This made him heave a sigh of relief. Although he was confident in his ancestor, if this state lasted for too long, it would also affect his cultivation and Tao heart. He might even suffer from Qi deviation. How about it? If we obtain this opportunity, countless geniuses will appear in the human race. Your Han family can use this opportunity to soar and greatly increase your status in the human race. Longhao swirled his wine cup and smiled. Hanyu curled his lips. If that's the case, why doesn't your dragon race want it? Longhao chuckled. Of course we want it. I just want to help you on account of our relationship. The cultivation forces of the Earth Immortal world are not very strong. Now, only the hidden sect and the human school can enter. Hanyu frowned and asked, is this the intention of my ancestor? He already knew that his ancestor had an extremely high status in the hidden sect. Your ancestor doesn't have the time to care about you. I just want to help you and fight for the right to enter the hidden sect as soon as possible, Longhao said angrily. At first, he only befriended Hanyu because he looked like Hanju. After interacting with him for so long, the two of them were already very concerned. Recently, he had learned in the Myriad Worlds projection that Hanju was about to have a son. This child's potential was extremely heaven-defying. When this kid descended, Hanju would definitely forget Hanyu even more. In Longhao's opinion, no matter how well Hanyu did, he was far inferior to Hanju. The greatest opportunity in the world was to win Hanju's favor. Hanyu hesitated for a moment and said, all right, I'll bring my Han family disciples there first. If I succeed, I'll bring the humans in. Longhao beamed. Don't worry. There are no powerful cultivators in the Earth Immortal world. We're going to carry out the duty of immortal gods and spread our faith to absorb Providence. Hanyu nodded. Outside the heavenly Tao. In the city of the Calamity Race, Divine Lord Peacock was meditating and cultivating. He suddenly opened his eyes, which emitted a terrifying cold light. He looked over. An extremely powerful aura was quickly attacking from the depths of the darkness. It was unstoppable. Soon, he saw a mighty figure. It was unknown how tall it was, but it was even larger than the entire immortal world. This figure was bare-chested. His muscles were like huge mountains. He held a huge axe in his hand. The blade was surrounded by visible flames, like the chaotic Qi when the world was created. It was vast and ancient. Divine Lord Peacock frowned. His gaze landed on the giant's face. This person's hair was disheveled and his white hair danced wildly. He looked like a demon. His face was wild and the corners of his mouth revealed killing intent and cruelty. Freedom Realm fellow, what are you doing here in my heavenly Tao? A cold voice entered Divine Lord Peacock's ears. Divine Lord Peacock immediately flashed into the darkness and turned to look at the giant. This giant was Hanju's good friend, Pan Xin. He With that, he suddenly raised the heaven-opening axe and slashed down angrily. His body was even larger than the immortal world. Just the terrifying wind stirred up by his raised arm was enough to tear everything apart. The chaotic chi in the dark forbidden zone surged violently. The heaven-opening axe slashed out with unstoppable force. Divine Lord Peacock raised his right hand. A five-colored divine light shot out from his back and collided with the heaven-opening axe. The five-colored divine light shattered. The terrifying wind landed on Divine Lord Peacock's body. In an instant, Divine Lord Peacock's body was destroyed. In the next second, Divine Lord Peacock appeared in another place with a terrified expression. How can this be? Divine Lord Peacock was shocked. His five-colored divine light was his intrinsic mystical power that had been upgraded to a great Tao mystical power. This was his strongest reliance. Even a great Tao sage would stagger when brushed by the five-colored divine light. His gaze was fixed on the heaven-opening axe in Pan-Xian's hand. What was that? Divine Lord Peacock rushed towards Pan-Xian, and a huge battle immediately erupted. In the heavenly Tao, outside the 33rd heaven, the sages were alarmed by the terrifying battle aura. Hanju, who was cultivating, was the same. He opened his eyes and recognized that Divine Lord Peacock's opponent was Pan-Xian. The current Pan-Xian was indeed powerful. He had to be wary. 100 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Not for the time being. He has the providence of the heavenly Tao. With the death of the heavenly Tao, his strength will decrease greatly and he will even lose control of the supreme treasure. Seeing this line of words, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. In that case, Pan-Xian was on the heavenly Tao's side. Hanju closed his eyes. CHCK for EWSD rise on Novi Elbin. Millennium, the 1,000-year mark was not reached yet. He couldn't stop. As for Divine Lord Peacock, if he died in Pan-Xian's hands, it meant that he had no fate with the Great Tao. However, Hanju still believed that he could escape. This fellow had such a bad temper. If he was going to die, he would have died long ago. In the blink of an eye, Hanju's 1,000-year seclusion ended. He opened his eyes in shock. Pan-Xian and Divine Lord Peacock were still fighting. The two of them had fought for more than 600 years. They had already entered a deeper space. Only sages could sense it. It seemed that Pan-Xian was still very worried about the heavenly Tao, afraid that the battle pressure would affect it. Divine Lord Peacock shone with the five-colored divine light. His speed was extremely fast, turning into afterimages. Even sages were dazzled. Pan-Xian couldn't keep up with his speed. Divine Lord Peacock's five-colored divine light was like a blade, causing Pan-Xian to be covered in injuries. However, this did not affect him at all. Pan-Xian's aura was still domineering. Hanju's blood boiled. This was a true battle. However, I still pursue the path of insta-kill. Although such a battle is exciting, it's too dangerous. Hanju thought silently.